What's up, everybody? It's your boy Sir Splash, and today I am doing a video that is kind of unique. I haven't done this type of video before, but it's basically stems from I got a video request to do Lobo versus Deadpool. Now, I'm not doing that regular versus matchup because Lobo would kick his ass, like no difficulty, but someone in my Discord, I believe it was Forks, suggested I do a character comparison, basically try to determine who is the better character between the two. So to do that, I have come up with 5 different categories that I'll use to break down who is better. First one will be backstory, just examining their backstories and saying which one I believe is a better backstory. 2 will be storylines, so some notable storylines that comes to mind for both characters, and then kind of figuring out which one has more powerful or more iconic storylines. Number 3 will be impact on the verse. Basically, how does this character fit into their own universe and how do they affect it? 4 will be the purpose of the character. So basically, what purpose do I believe they serve and how well do they serve that purpose? And then last one will be development. So how has the character developed and who has the better character development over the years? So with that being said, let's go ahead and get into the first category, which is backstory. We will first start with Deadpool. Wade Wilson's backstory is a pretty basic one and kind of resembles Wolverine's. Essentially, Deadpool was a high-class assassin and mercenary who came down with cancer. Now, his way to try to survive this was he was put into an experiment, a weapons program similar to the Weapon X program, and the results were he came out with a massive regeneration factor and some superhuman physical characteristics. His healing factor is arguably better than Wolverine's. It's more so used as a gag now, but essentially the regeneration factor would actually be a lot better if he wasn't dealing with the cancer. So because he has regen, it constantly nullifies the cancer, but it could be lethal if he loses it. Now, this is kind of a basic summary of his backstory. The last remaining portion is that his experiment that made him the way he is with his healing factor and all that actually further made him crazy. Basically gave him split personalities in a way that you really don't know what the hell Deadpool's gonna do, and it kind of developed him as a gag character. But yeah, so he got crazy as shit from it, as well as he got his regen and physicals from the weapons program. Now, looking over at Lobo. Lobo's backstory is he is from a race called the Zarnians. Now, when Lobo was born, it was very obvious from right away that he was evil as hell. In fact, it killed someone in his family just from him being evil and being born. Lobo in high school decided to make a poison/virus that eradicated all his people. He did this so that he could be unique. Afterwards, after doing all of this, Lobo would go on to become a galactic bounty hunter and swore an oath to be the best bounty hunter he could be and to always keep his word when he was given something to do. Okay, so comparing their backstories, I'm gonna have to give this one to Lobo. I just think it's actually funnier the way he was born. He was so damn evil, he killed someone in his family, and then he would go on to literally eliminate all his people just to be unique. Whereas Deadpool's origin/backstory kind of resembles Wolverine's in a lot of ways. It's just that he's crazier. So just for its uniqueness, I prefer Lobo's backstory to Deadpool. So that's 1 point for Lobo. Next up is storylines/situations that are notable for each character. I'll start with Lobo this time. Lobo, some of his notable stories include how he got pissed off and went up to heaven and beat the crap out of the gods. They saw him coming too, and Lobo was naked, and they're like, damn, there's not really much we could do. And we would see later on in different storylines how Lobo actually gets banned from the afterlife. This is due to the fact that he starts riots in heaven and he enjoys hell too much. So he becomes immortal just because he's not wanted anywhere. Another iconic storyline for Lobo is the Easter Bunny hits up Lobo and says, "Yo, I need you to murk Santa for me." So basically, it is a story of Lobo hunting down Santa, sniping all his elves at his workshop, and assassinating Santa Claus for the Easter Bunny. This also demonstrated the power of Lobo, as Santa Claus oftentimes bulls on Darkseid. Now, this was an avatar of Santa, but it's still very impressive that he could pull this off. And then lastly, one of my favorite Lobo stories, it's pretty early on, is when Lobo got drunk as hell and decided to go bully post-crisis Superman. It was so bad that he literally at one point had Superman in a headlock and was actually bullying him. So yeah, those are some of the more notable storylines for Lobo / the ones that come to mind for me as far as defining his character. Next is the storylines for Lobo Deadpool. So Deadpool's storylines, of course, his probably most iconic is his beef with Thanos. Essentially, Deadpool had a thing with Lady Death. Thanos was obsessed with Lady Death. And to get back at Deadpool for trying to bang his chick, or the chick he wanted, Thanos made Deadpool immortal. So the whole time, Deadpool's basically trying to die to get with Lady Death, but he can't because Thanos cursed him with immortality. Another iconic storyline is Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. The first version of this, I think there's two. I know I've read two, so pretty sure it's only two. But Deadpool was taken by the humans, sent to a doctor to cure his craziness. He ends up getting even more personalities, and one of them tells him to essentially eliminate everybody. And we see Deadpool go as far as killing the writers themselves, killing the Watcher telling the story. It got pretty wild. So that's another one of his iconic stories. And then lastly, one of my favorite is Deadpool Wars. Essentially, every version of Deadpool, including Dogpool and Pandapool, all come together and begin waging a war to see who is the last surviving Deadpool to come out on top. Now, in this category, for better storylines, I have to give it to Deadpool. Yeah, Lobo's storylines are funny, and they show off like how much of a hood rat he is, but Deadpool's stories are a little more iconic, and personally, I think they're a little more interesting than just Lobo going around messing with people. I mean, Deadpool did have a purpose, literally trying to die, but he can't. Killing the Marvel Universe was interesting, seeing how he went about that. So yeah, for storylines, I would have to give it to Deadpool. Next up is the impact on their universe. Now, we'll start with Deadpool in this one. Essentially, he is the annoying gag character. A lot of the heroes can't stand him, and they also are concerned about him because he is a liability in the way that he doesn't really care if he kills people. He doesn't really care at all. And especially with Wolverine. Wolverine hates Deadpool. Their rivalry is well documented. And so as the funny guy and the anomaly, so to speak, Deadpool oftentimes can very well be the plot device. He also has breaking the fourth wall feats where he can actually talk to the reader. So you never really know what you're going to get from Deadpool, which makes him the X factor of his verse. Now, looking over at Lobo, in a similar fashion, Lobo kind of serves his own purpose. He is a bounty hunter, so at any point in time in his verse, he could be hunting you down. And because of his power level, that is very dangerous. Lobo also somewhat has principles. Like I said, he sticks to his word if he gives you his word. And he doesn't take shit from anybody. So Lobo is the bounty hunter outside of Deathstroke, of course, because Deathstroke's known as the bounty hunter, as well as the powerhouse that if he steps in, mostly all the time changes the battle in favor of whoever's side he's on. Now, for impact on the verse, I am going to have to give it to Lobo. While he's had, like, killing the Marvel Universe, Deadpool is mostly just around for gags and to make stories funnier, whereas Lobo actually is a game changer whenever he gets involved wherever he is, including, like I said, he's bullied Superman, he's taken on the Lanterns, He's hacked Darkseid. He's killed Santa Claus. So he can cause drastic changes in the verse. Whereas Deadpool has done it a couple times, but it's not really of his own power. Usually he has to acquire something, where Lobo mostly just wilds out on his own. So for their impact on their universe, I gotta give it to Lobo. Fourth category is their purpose within the stories and within their verse. So we will start off with Lobo. He doesn't really have a defined purpose. Lobo was actually created to make fun of Wolverine because Wolverine was all the rage, and DC kind of wanted to copy that anti-hero type status, and it ended up being very popular. And Stan Lee actually said Lobo was his favorite DC character. So Lobo's purpose mostly is to cause mayhem, chaos, and to add humor to the sometimes not necessarily boring DC storylines, but dramatic storylines. For example, at one point, everybody in the universe was compromised by a telepathic attack. Lobo pulls up like, yeah, that's not shit to me. So his is he could be an equalizer at times just by showing up and giving his strength to other people by backing them up, as well as he could be a really chaotic agent in the verse. Now, looking over at Deadpool, his purpose is to basically change stories. Whenever he shows up and something like battles involving Thanos, because of his personal beef with Thanos, which is actually pretty funny if you think about it, because they're nowhere near each other in power levels. Deadpool can shift the story dramatically from the sense that, okay, we don't know what Deadpool's going to do. It might go down. And then we see, for example, he's actually wildly capable despite not being that powerful. We've seen Wolverine actually say he is scared of a Wade Wilson without a healing factor, because Wade will actually have to act upon his skill more so than just being crazy. Lastly, he kind of serves as the guy that spices up the story for the reader, in the sense that Deadpool's very unpredictable, and you don't know what kind of turn the story will take whenever he gets involved. It could take a funny turn, it could take a wild turn, it could not turn at all, but the bottom line is you don't really know what Deadpool's going to do, because a lot of times Deadpool doesn't know what he's going to do. So in the category of their purpose of the characters in respect to their universe, I got to give it to Deadpool. Lobo, when he shows up, despite being crazy and funny, you know what you're going to get. Deadpool, however, because of his dynamic nature being so crazy, you don't know what he's going to do, and it makes it a lot more interesting for the reader, and it makes it a lot more crazier for the verse itself. So I would definitely say Deadpool gets the edge as the purposeful character. Final category to decide this matchup. It's 2-2 right now, so this will probably be the deciding factor, is character development. Now, starting with Deadpool, we actually see when he first shows up, he's kind of a serious character. He had beef with Cable. He was a top-notch mercenary. And he wasn't that funny. And then he develops into the gag character. He develops into the fourth wall breaking wild man of his verse. He also serves as a very skilled assassin, which is shown from time to time. We mostly see this through the fact that he pretty much stalemates Wolverine all the time, and we know how skilled Wolverine is. He was further developed when he fell in love with Lady Death, and it was funny seeing that Thanos couldn't really claim her heart, but someone as wild as Deadpool could. And overall, his character has remained consistent in the fact that he's wild, unpredictable, very fun, a very solid gag character, probably one of the most iconic gag characters we have currently. And he has essentially gone from just a very strong mercenary to a wisecracking, fourth wall breaking plot device. Now, looking over at Lobo as far as character development, we first see him. He is wildly powerful. We know this because he is literally smart enough to create a virus that one-shots his entire race. He then develops into essentially the quintessential bounty hunter. Despite being pretty wild and unorthodox, Lobo is very good at what he does. We see him develop with his love for space dolphins. This kind of becomes a gag throughout his stories. At one point, he had Aquaman pinned down and was going to kill him, but he found out Aquaman rocks with the dolphins, and Lobo supports that wave, so he's like, yo, you're my homie now. We've seen him serve time in the Justice League and helping the Justice League, as well as fighting the Justice League. So he developed into a very solid anti-hero figure, to where he's not necessarily evil, he's not necessarily good, he's kind of just bullying. He does what he wants. So, in terms of character development, it pains me to say this, but I gotta give it to Deadpool. My personal opinion, I love Lobo as a character way more than Deadpool, but breaking it down with these 5 categories, I gotta give the edge to Deadpool. He's definitely serves a better purpose in his verse, as well as he's more developed as a character. Lobo was kind of the same throughout his stories, and his new 52 version is complete ass. I hate that version. So that definitely didn't help him at all. But yeah, just based on my 5 categories of backstory, storylines, impact on the verse, purpose in the verse, and character development, Deadpool takes the victory. Anyways, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, comment, join my Discord to hit me up with video suggestions and talk to me. Almost to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd appreciate if you share my content and get me there. Anyways, it's been your boy Sir Splash, and I'll see y'all later. Peace.